Let me move to Sally Mitchell. We spoke to you yesterday, only too briefly, so I'm so glad you're back today. And I remember my parting question to you was, if people are about to hit the skids here, if they really are in trouble making mortgage repayments, should they come clean with the company and explain, with the bank or the mortgage lender? Should they say so or not?
Yes, they should. There's no point, putting your head in the sand and being in denial. You can only get help if you ask for help and admit that you need help. And there is no shame with everything that's going on. There is absolutely no shame in not being able to make ends meet. The average household is being squeezed from all sides. It's true. People are going without food. I spoke to one person today who said, no, I cannot cut my costs anymore. There's three of us, a small child and the parents, and we're spending £30 a week on food. So there really is nothing else to cut. And if that's your situation, then you do need to reach out. And lenders are there to help you. They have a duty of care. The Financial Conduct Authority makes it so that they have to help you if you are in difficulty. So
I mean, those of us of a certain vintage, and I certainly admit to being of that antique, venerable dotage vintage, remember Black Wednesday and remember what happened then. And I remember, so many people I knew personally, so many people that you heard about, simply finding when the mortgage rate hit as it did then, 14%, and people just could not afford to stay in their homes. And there was this awful phenomenon that you saw, not simply of negative equity, but of handing the keys back and yet being continually, for the rest of your life, financially responsible for the property that you couldn't afford to live in and knew that you couldn't make the repayments on. I don't know whether Alfie wants to explain what happens in the appalling event that occurs, or whether Sally wants to, or you both want to. Why don't we ask Alfie to explain? Let's imagine that you can't make your repayments, Alfie, and you think, well, we can't continue to live here. We can't do it. We just can't. And you hand back the keys. That's not the end, unfortunately, is it?
Well, no, precisely. And that's because of the dire straits of the housing market more generally in this country. If you are forced from the home you own in the way that you was described, and that's an appalling situation to be in, but will increasingly become a reality for people if government position doesn't move, then your options are equally dire. You have a private rented sector where costs are going up just as fast. Rental costs are going up because the business model for buy-to-let mortgages, landlords, isn't holding. They are also affected by these interest rates, and they're passing those costs onto renters. You've got unaffordable private rents, and then you've got a social rented sector that is just oversubscribed. We do not have enough social homes. So no, it doesn't stop there, and it's because of the broader dysfunction in our housing market.
Sally, when we say, when you've just said these words, I must say I wish I'd heard them many years ago, which are, your mortgage lender, the company that you're borrowing the money from, has a duty of care to you. They have to help you. How far does that help go? Let's imagine you can't make the extra repayments. We've heard that it could be $3,000 a year. I heard yesterday it could be $8,000 a year. More depends on how much money you've borrowed. But if you haven't got the money, and if you do tell them, what's meant to happen next?
Well, they do have departments dedicated to doing this, helping people. So it's not easy to find the help, but it is there. They might suggest a payment holiday. They might suggest extending your term that you pay the mortgage over to being longer so that you pay less per month. They might even suggest going on to an interest-only basis for a short time whilst this crisis plays out. All of these things have their own negative aspects and their own risks, of course. And going back to what you were saying about Black Wednesday, it's really interesting that although we're not seeing the interest rates that we did see, 13, 14, 15%, because people are borrowing so much more due to the cost of houses, actually, when you put it all together into a calculator, and Alfie might be much better qualified to do this, actually, it feels like people are paying 13% instead of 6%. Because in the old days, we used to borrow twice our annual salary. Yeah. And nowadays, we're borrowing at least 4.5. So it sort of works out around 13%. So no wonder people are struggling.
So Sally, just talk us through you're in trouble, you can see that your fixed rate is coming to an end. The amount of money you now have to pay is really more than you can afford. You're very concerned and worried about it. We've heard your options. A, come clean to the company and explain. B,
Yes.
you can have a mortgage holiday, although people will say that's not necessarily the ideal thing because it just means that the payments are racking up.
Yeah.
C, you could just extend the term. So instead of 25 years, maybe you'll be allowed to make it 35 years or something like that. D, if it's not already interest only, maybe you'll be able to make it interest only. Anything else in your repertoire?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I'll look into my magic hat.
Yes, exactly. I know.
Of trying. There is a government scheme, a government loan that can be applied for if you're really struggling. You tend to have to, well, you definitely have to be in receipt of some sort of benefits to get on board. But it's called SME, which is I can never say it, the support for mortgage interest. And it's a contribution from the government that goes towards your interest payments, not the capital outlay of the mortgage, but the interest payments. It's a loan, it's not free money, and it needs to be paid back when you sell the property. But it is a little known, not very well publicised, maybe not well known, element that can be utilised as well. And if you are coming towards the end of your product, please, 6 months before, start looking, start getting advice from a broker. If we think things are bad now, with Thursday and successive rate rises, which I'm sure we're probably going to get, things might be a whole lot worse in 3 months. So lock into a rate, no matter how unpalatable it is, lock in if you can, knowing that if things improve, you can move on to a different rate. And if things get worse, then at least you've locked in at a comparatively lower rate. So action.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, both of you. Thanks so much. Coming